Do you feel like you don't have enough time to write or read? Maybe you have a full-time job, or you're a full-time student, or you have children, and those things just seem to eat up at your time like a crocodile eating up at your whole entire life, and you feel like your life is draining away like water down a drain pipe, and you don't know what to do. 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 Here are the 5 tips that I believe will help you to maximize your time in the most efficient way. Will seem like you're doing 8 hours of work in only 90 minutes. But if you're new here and you want to join a realm of storytellers and improve your writing ability, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll keep you updated with future videos. So, first tip is about realizing that you only need 90 minutes every day. And that is all you really need to be an exceptional writer. I believe strongly in this. Writing is known as knowledge work. Other forms of knowledge work include computer programming, video editing, and composing. And so knowledge work is basically anything that relies on your brain heavily to create new content. Obviously writing falls under that category, but as is explained in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, the brain is really only capable of a maximum of about 3 hours of knowledge work every day. Otherwise you get burnt out very quickly. And with writing, it's even more heavily knowledge work intensive. It's probably less than 3 hours, it's more like 2 hours, and so your best writing is done easily within the first 90 minutes of writing every day. And so you really only need 90 minutes every day to basically write at almost your full potential. I'll just put some imaginary statistics on this to explain it. Basically, imagine you're working for 90 minutes a day, then you will work probably close to 80% of your full potential. And if you work for 3 hours a day writing, then you will probably hit close to 100% of your potential. So by doubling the time, you've actually only increased your writing potential by about 20%, and 80% is still very high, and it's more than enough to write an exceptional book similar to most professional authors who write full-time, because most professional authors still burn out after about 2 hours of writing every day. Some can go for 3 or 4, but those are more extreme cases. Most people can't really write for more than 2 hours a day, and so if you have 2 hours, then you have easily enough time. This is not so much a time management tip, it's more of just a encouragement, because you actually don't need that much time to write a book. You don't need to write for 6 hours a day. In fact, if you do, you'll probably burn out after a couple of weeks at most. But this only really works if it is undistracted work. This is also essential, and it leads me on to the next tip, which is, funnily enough, to work undistracted. I bet you didn't see that one coming. 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 I'm gonna stop now. From my years of experience, I can do more in 90 minutes of undistracted work than, say, 4 or 5 hours of writing scattered throughout the day. Not only is 4 or 5 hours of writing too much in a day, also 90 minutes basically gets you in a state where you're completely focused on the work. And I'll add some interesting statistics to this. If you're distracted by something, some other source, some other person while you're writing, then it takes about 23 minutes for you to get to that original state of focused attention before you were distracted. And so distractions have a huge effect on your ability to write. And I work for 90 minutes undistracted every day writing, and I reckon I get more content written down than most people do working in an entire day, because it is undistracted and I'm not wasting these little half an hour distractions. A distraction isn't just the length of a distraction, it's the length of the distraction plus 23 minutes. So it's much more than just the time of the distraction, because after a distraction you can't immediately go back to that state of focused work. And I always, every single time I write, I put a sign in front of my door saying something aggressive to anyone who might think of interrupting me. Something like, if you come into this room, I'll eat your head off, because I have the mind of a 2-year-old. The third tip is to listen to audiobooks. This one is particularly easy to argue. Without audiobooks, I would have given up on my hope of being any kind of good writer probably a long time ago, and they have saved me. I actually find it very hard to just sit down and read a physical book. In a year, I probably read a maximum of 10 physical books, and 90% of the books that I read are audiobooks. And why? Because I consider myself an audio learner, and I believe I've built up an ability over the last few months to listen to audiobooks at 2.5 times speed and still hear every word clearly. And most people would just hear a jumble of sounds because
the people reading the audiobooks would be speaking so fast.
And at the start, I also just heard a jumble of sounds, but now I can actually distinguish between every single word, and I can easily follow the story at 2.5 times speed. And actually, I enjoy it more because I enjoy it when it's read more fast-paced than when I read slowly, because it gets the story moving faster. And this allows me to read 300,000 word fantasy epics in as little as, say, 7 hours. And that is a very fast reading speed. So if I just listen for 1 hour a day, then that is 52 long books every year, which is over 15 million words every year, which is more than enough to sustain a very consistent and very engaging writing voice, similar to most professional authors. Because from what I've heard, most professional authors read around 15 million words a year, I reckon. And the beauty of audiobooks is that you can listen to them while you're doing other stuff. And so you can listen to more books in less time while also doing other stuff at the same time. Right? Does that blow your mind? Does that blow your mind? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Do the benefits ever end? I'm looking into the distance and I can't see an end to the benefits of this. Here are just a few things that I do while listening to audiobooks. Running, eating, gaming, washing dishes, doing laundry, traveling in the car, in the train, in the bus, in a boat, in a plane, walking. There you go. There's all the time you've been asking for, handed to you on a silver plate with a flourish. And if you haven't already got Audible, then I would question your sanity if you didn't get it now. Only joking. But jokes aside, this has changed my life in so many ways. Without Audible, I certainly wouldn't be filming this video. I would have given up, as I've said, my hopes of being a good writer a long time ago. And you can get your first audiobook for free with the link in the description. Literally any audiobook you can get completely free. If you're looking for a first audiobook suggestion, I would recommend The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm only saying that because that's the first audiobook that I listened to, and it hooked me into reading all of the others. And so it's a very good audiobook to start with, I think, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And so the fourth tip is to think of ideas wherever you are, whatever you're doing. As I've already established, you don't really need that much time to actually write your ideas down, and 90% of writing is thinking of the ideas for what you're going to write down. And so I really do believe that writing is one of those things that you can be very excellent at, even if you don't have much free time. Why exactly? Because the majority of writing is thinking of ideas. The physical action of writing and typing on a keyboard is not writing. A baby could do that. The only thing that distinguishes professional writers with babies is the ideas that the writers have. And you know the great part about it? You can have ideas anywhere. You know how Harry Potter was written? J.K. Rowling spent 5 years commuting on the train every day from work, there and back, and she was just thinking of ideas that entire time, and she was doing what 99% of people don't do, which is to use the time commuting to work and back. She spent that time thinking of ideas despite having a job and children to look after, and she was able to create Harry Potter basically in one of the busiest schedules that it is possible to have, being a full-time single mother and working. The only way that she was able to do that is because she used her time commuting in the best possible way. We all have the ability to do that, to write down ideas on the Notes app on our phone, and that is basically what I do pretty much every day. So the fifth tip is to write at the same time in the same place every day. So I've already established that thinking about your novel is 90% of writing, and you can do that anywhere. So that part of writing is done. Tick. And the next most important part is obviously writing those ideas down, and for that you only need 90 minutes a day, and so that part is also done. Tick. So this tip is about maximizing that 90 minutes even further. Basically, your brain likes to get into a rhythm, like the circadian rhythm of sleep, and this is explained a lot more in the book Deep Work, like I mentioned. But essentially, if you get to bed at the same time every day, plus or minus about half an hour, then you get to sleep very quickly. It's the same with writing. If you write at the same time, then your brain knows that that is the time. That is the time when you are in that mode where you are hyper creative. I have experienced this over the last few weeks because I've been writing at the same time, at the same place, almost every day, and that is in the evening at my desk. I feel like writing at that point. Any other point of the day, I don't feel like writing. But when that time of day comes along, suddenly I feel like writing, and it's strange. It's almost like a switch just goes off in my mind, and I suddenly I have such a strong urge to write that I can't not do it. It almost feels like I need to do it, but when you write is up to you. As I've said, I write in the evening, but most people probably work in the morning, but basically every person is different, so it's totally fine. But the time of day and the place are both huge factors that affect whether a habit is formed over the long run or not. James Clear talks about this in his book Atomic Habits, and this is perhaps the greatest productivity book I've ever read in my life, and I've read quite a few, but basically doing things at the same time in the same place are both two very important factors that affect whether a habit is going to stick in the long run or if you're going to break it after a few days. And so there's much more detail about this in the book, obviously. So those were my 5 tips, but there is so much more in these 2 books that I mentioned, Deep Work and Atomic Habits. These are the 2 best productivity books that I've ever read, and the time that I spent reading these books is a fraction compared to the productivity that I gained through them. And so if you want to maximize your time, reading these books is one of the best things that you could do. Same for me. I want to reread them again now, actually thinking about it. But if you found this video helpful and you want to join a realm of storytellers, consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and I'll keep you updated with future videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.